I discuss the US because I'm Australian, but I discuss the US because, I've said it before, but the history of the world is nothing if not a history of empires, and the US is one of the biggest empires in history. An incredibly powerful country, and what they do affects the world and very much affects us because we're in the Western world. We're in alliance with America, and our media, our language is the same. And so it's very relevant to us what's happening politically in the United States, especially when it's under a threat from authoritarianism. Many good people in the US are stepping up and fighting the good fight against the rising tide of authoritarianism. And so what is the danger? The danger is, authoritarianism. It's fascism, actually. And I think it's very clear that the forces that are behind Donald Trump, that have overtaken the Republican Party, are anti-democratic forces. They're forces of fascism, in my opinion. So to me, it's very hard to imagine this kind of low-life carnival barker called Donald Trump, who is, a pathological liar, a malignant narcissist, a person whose entire history demonstrates that is what he is, that he's got such a large support. And so the question is, who are these supporters? Who is supporting him?
Two types of passion, one sidewalk.
Georgia's going red.
Thousands of supporters outside of former President Trump and his vice presidential nominee, J.D. Vance's rally, formed a big ball of energy.
So after watching hundreds of interviews with Trump supporters, which a lot of YouTube channel presenters have been doing outside of Trump rallies over the last few years, it appears that most of them, a huge quantity of them, or thousands of them, are pretty simple and uneducated people. They don't seem to have the capacity for very much deep analysis or for research. They don't seem to have a high education or even a moderate education in the sense of having a body of knowledge about, say, any particular topic that they're dealing with, whether it be economics, the legal system, the state, statesmanship, science, regulation, how a country is run. They don't appear to have any body of knowledge. They're just simply caught up in some sort of simplistic cult following where they think one person is the solution to all the world's...
It's awful! I beg your pardon? God damn!
I think there are other groups who support him because they think they're going to get something that they want out of his presidency. So Christian fundamentalists seem to be after, some of them, the more extreme, are after some sort of acceleration to the end times because they see this as a Bible prophecy and they think that he's going to bring about some sort of... They want to see an enormous upheaval. They want to see some sort of collapse. And so they seem to be supporting him. And others, in the meantime, they want they or others in the Christian fundamentalist grouping. So they want to destroy the church-state separation, and they want national anti-abortion laws, and they want obviously women to go back to the home, and they want to demonize and punish and subject all minority groups, most minority groups, to an illegitimacy as citizens. And so that's what they'd be getting out of it, and that would make themselves feel powerful and in control. So they're really after some kind of theocracy, and if it's actually a dictatorship, then and those policies are implemented, then that would be a theocracy. So to some degree, a theocracy. a religious theocracy. So that's what they're getting out of it. There are others, I should mention, I forgot one group of Christians who are the prosperity gospels, the Christians who are very narcissistic and just want to make billions of dollars and justify that activity. So there's a lot of people, there's a large group of people who will be benefiting directly by being part of that movement if they win. So it's otherwise known as anarcho-capitalism, so capitalism with no control, or libertarianism, which is another way of saying that, or neoliberalism, which is liberalism which is just completely free of, as I say, government activity, regulation, redistribution, so forth. And another way to put it is laissez-faire capitalism. It's complete, free, open capitalism. Take your pick on which phraseology you want to use to describe that movement, but there's definitely a massive power base there in the corporations. So you have a mixture here of simple folk, uneducated people, the religious, economic zealots, Machiavellians who are out for what they can get, and then you have your personality disordered narcissists and psychopaths. Now, I know the word psychopath sounds extreme, but I think 4% or 5% of the whole population is a psychopath, and 25% of the CEOs or politicians are in that group. Now, psychopaths aren't people who go around normally killing people. They often get what they want from power, and so this is why they rise in these areas. Malignant narcissists and psychopaths. Many top psychiatrists and psychologists and professors of psychiatry have said that they're almost certain that Donald Trump is a malignant narcissist. He's quite an extreme example. And we see that in his behaviour. There's many symptomatic moments where you can see that's what he is. So there's your grouping. It seems to be a big sort of marriage of various groups who are looking for something, and that I think that's where the grouping comes from. But the biggest group in that is the mass of less educated and simpler folk, and who've been caught up in this kind of cultic. And they've been hoodwinked and into thinking that there might be a solution in their lives to this party or this group or this person, and it almost seems certain that that's not the case. And we've seen that with Franco in Spain, with Mussolini in Italy, with Hitler in Germany, and with whether it be Slobodan Milosevic or Chavez and Maduro in Venezuela, and Pinochet in Chile. We've just seen just how rotten to the core these dictatorships and fascist movements, including the far left communist one-study states like China and Russia, the Soviet Union, and now the sort of crypto communist, crypto fascist Putin dictatorship. And sham democracy. Okay. Now, in terms of people caught up in this, we have a thing called the Dunning-Kruger effect. So this is a phenomenon where most people, nearly everybody, think that they are more intelligent than they are, and I don't think too many of us are excluded. However, they did find that the more educated you are, the more likely that you do realise that you don't know everything, that your position is not 100% certain, and you're less likely to think you are much more intelligent than you are, because you do come across far more intelligent people in that general field as well, and you recognise you're living with and working with intelligent people, so you recognise those who are definitely more intelligent than you are. That's just the only corollary there, that people, the more education, the less likely you have a heavy dose of this syndrome. I mean, there are those who probably do, who think that they're much more intelligent than they are, and they've also got degrees. In fact, I have to say, to be honest, I've met some PhD graduates and people with multiple degrees, including in that multiple degree mix, PhDs and masters. and who seem to who can suffer from this syndrome. So, but there seems to be millions of people who aren't very educated, who do think that they're certain about their position, but I think that they're getting this. They're sort of getting this from the cult leader and from those around him and the edgelords on the internet who are telling them that they are right and that they have every reason to believe in these conspiracies, etc., and that there's proof. But of course, they don't seem to research or look into or have any background knowledge as to how to research and look into these conspiracies. So, for example, let's just look at one case, and that's the case where Trump has said that asylum seekers coming over the southern border of the US are all criminals. All there's millions apparently of criminals and mentally ill people who have been purposefully released from institutions in their home countries. Okay, the first thing that occurred to me was that it's interesting he's saying this because Donald Trump is mentally ill. If he's a malignant narcissist, he's mentally ill. So my question is, who let him out? But okay, that's point one. Point two, there are not many mental institutions in South and Central America. It's very hard to get a mental health diagnosis, except for acute cases, I imagine. And they would find it almost impossible to make their way through several countries to get to the US. So it doesn't make sense. I mean, when you first think about this issue, you think, well, is it true? I mean, you can easily Google and find out that these countries overwhelmingly and mostly are not releasing or opening the jail doors and saying, go for it, go to America. They're just not doing that. There are some examples of escapees, and there was a famous couple of examples in history in Cuba and I think Venezuela where I think way back when Chavez did something, put a bunch of criminals on a boat and sent them to America. And so, that's the so-called evidence, but that's not even what they're talking about. That's history. We're talking about now. So overwhelmingly, it's a crazy lie. I mean, there's no way that there are, and the number's ridiculous too, like millions. It's not conceivably possible. So it's not the case. Now, are there criminals in the mixture of the people coming over the border? Of course there are. Question is, are there more as a proportion of the total people coming over the border than there are even in the US population? Probably not. The US has the highest rate of incarceration by a long shot in the Western world. There's probably less criminals in the immigrant population than in America itself. So again, it's important to make that point, to bring some proportion to this. And in every group, every population in the world, there's going to be some people who, and are we talking about escapees or people who once had a criminal record? I mean, this is another thing. So commonly immigration programs don't allow people in who've got a criminal record, but they've done their time, they've been let out, just like millions in the United States who are now not being vilified. They've got certain black marks against their name, but they can get jobs, get married, have families, and live a life. So, there's a lot of nuance to this, like, as usual, when you start to analyse. But the simplicity of all this, and the denigration of a whole group of people, another fact. So all of the studies ever done was that there's a low rate of crime amongst immigrants than there is in the normal US population. So once immigrants arrive and set up their lives, there's a lower rate of crime in that community than there are in the usual. So that's another interesting nuance and a very important point to make in this whole study. So to denigrate them is just absurd. So, this is just a lie. It's not happening on the scale anywhere near or the scale. It's a ludicrous, ridiculous lie. It's also racist, and it's to denigrate the other. It's a very typical fascist, iconic sort of cliche about the other. So many letters and many questions have been asked to the Trump organization, his political groupings and himself, about show us the evidence. And of course, there's no response. So he has no evidence whatsoever of this claim. Probably because there is no evidence. And if there was, you'd think that they would provide it, but they don't. He just made it up. It's a racist. He knows that his base are not going to question it, so he just makes things up. The whole thing's a joke. It's ludicrous. It's embarrassing. It's an embarrassing lie to anybody who can think about it for 5 minutes properly. That's the problem with his followers. They don't seem to have the capacity to research or to apply common sense or to realise that they are being conned or any of that. Kind of a cultic thing. I mean, one of the signs of this to me is when people dress at a political rally like they're a face painter at a football match. This is a big worry. I mean, what is behind this? What sort of person are you dealing with? Okay, so the next question is, the next example, I think I might do another video on this one. It's just the example of the attacks on Jasmine Khan, the young head of the Federal Trade Commission in America, who's taking on big tech and taking on Google and taking on Amazon. And she's being attacked quite ferociously. And again, the people attacking her are saying very simplistic things, and the people who follow them and agree with them probably don't know anything about competition theory. I mean, I did economics at university, I did competition theory, and I followed. When you study something for so long and so in depth, you do then follow it for the rest of your life. You see newspaper articles, you read the financial press, you might read a book, and you keep up to date to some degree, and you know what it's all about. Like, why is there monopoly law? Why is there regulation around competition? So they're attacking her because she's trying to bring more competition into and stop monopolies forming, and which is exactly what her job is. But she's being attacked again. Would any of these people ever have studied competition? Do any of them ever know that this is an important part of statesmanship? So education involves not just facts, which are very important, but analytical thinking and understanding systems. And it's important to understand systems because government is complex, and you do need education. You do need to understand systems, and this is where we get this constituency who doesn't question. They don't really understand what they're talking about or what they're listening to, so they're able to be. And you ask yourself, what sort of person would hoodwink such a group? Well, therein lies the poor character. So let's just have a look at what we're dealing with this guy, Donald Trump. So he's a convicted felon. He's had 91 indictments. He associated for 15 years with a guy running a child sex ring, Jeffrey Epstein, and he described him as being a great guy. He's found by a civil court to have raped a woman in a change room. He's creepy about his daughter. He set up a university with false degrees and was ordered to pay $25 million back to the students. He's been bankrupt 6 times, even though he inherited about $400 million. He loves dictators. He's a friend. It's just crazy. He talks up Orban in Hungary, Putin, Kim Jong-un in North Korea, Xi in China, and the Egyptian. There's an Egyptian issue now about money being paid, $10 million being paid to Trump by the Egyptian former Prime Minister, I think. He's provided tax cuts for billionaires. He's absolutely racist. He's a racist. He's a sexist pig. He's 78 years old. He'll be the oldest person ever running for office. He's showing very consistent signs of cognitive decline. He would be 82 in his fourth year of office if he was elected. The man's a moron. He's also really stupid. When it comes to how to govern a country, let alone the world's biggest economy, he seems to be a very sick man. He's a very sick man. He's a sick and twisted individual. He's a disordered person. He's a dimwit with a penchant for pathological lying and self-obsessed infantile infantilism. He calls his opponents by childish schoolyard names. I mean, it's extraordinary, and yet here we are. It's almost impossible. It's almost impossible to believe where we are with this guy, but here we are. So let's talk about the influencers and the edgelords online who are involved in making millions of dollars by exploiting this group of people who seem to be getting excited and caught up in this sort of cultic movement. So we've got people like, Alex Jones, InfoWars, Tucker Carlson, Russell Brand, Tim Pool, Joe Rogan, and also other people in business who are caught up in this is Elon Musk, who are exploiting this is Elon Musk and Peter Thiel. And in the political field, I think it's quite obvious that there are people who don't believe what they're saying, but they're going along for the ride, and that's I should have mentioned Mike Lindell, that My Pillow guy, who's a complete nutter. So in the political field, we've got Vance, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert. These guys are really sad individuals, and they seem to have risen up in this context, in this party. Paul Gosar, his entire family have disowned him. Ted Cruz and Lindsey Graham, who just change their positions constantly. They seem to be total cowards, sycophants, and they're just sucking up to Trump to stay around. Ron DeSantis, he was just hopeless. Mike Johnson, the Speaker, he's a nutter, Christian fundamentalist. So that's the group who seem to be exploiting. There's a lot more of them. I've just mentioned a few there, and they're it's the internet that's given them this power, and the internet has been behind a lot of this, the rise of the internet, and YouTube and all of the online, TikToks and there's a phrase that keeps coming up about this group, this base group, and that is profoundly ignorant. And I think that there are people, I see them talking, and it's very obvious to me that they're profoundly ignorant. They just simply they seem to be getting something out of joining this sort of this cult, this general group, but they don't seem to have any analytical processing abilities or knowledge or bodies of knowledge or what have you. And I want to mention a couple of quotes here. So Mark Twain, the American writer, he says, "Never argue with stupid people. They will drag you down to their level and beat you with experience." So it's very hard to argue with them because they always have a follow-up line and a way of getting out of the argument. And then, if not just simply running away, they don't want to continue if you are beating them in the argument. And regarding fascism, Bertrand Russell, the philosopher, said, "First they fascinate the fools," which is what I'm talking about in today's today's episode. First they fascinate the fools, then they muzzle the intelligent. That's the fascist playbook. So I'll leave it there today. That's my discussion of some discussion of the exasperation that we feel about the support for this man, who obviously has no respect for his followers, and he thinks that they're complete idiots as well. Like anyone who thinks they can say I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and they'd still support me, what he's saying is that they're idiots. And he even said he doesn't care about them. It slips out from time to time. He really doesn't care. And yet they still support him. It's just extraordinary, and it'll be an ongoing discussion, probably for psychologists and political analysts and others. So thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you next time. Thank you. Bye.